Joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, Coach Mack McCarthy, who has an unlimited supply of Pirate Radio gear. He has something new on every week. Looking good, Coach Mack.
Jonathan Ellerby. I've got a hookup up there, and he takes care of me.
Yes, sir. Good stuff. Coach, I gave you a homework assignment last week.
Uh-oh.
Did you watch the Washington Commanders beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I didn't because I was otherwise professionally occupied, but I
Fair.
did keep I did keep up with it and was appropriately impressed. And I don't know how many Super Bowls Jaden Daniels is going to win, but it's more than one.
Ooh, I like to hear that. Coach, I think last time the Commanders won a playoff game, were you here? Or was that before you got here? It was
I think
January of
there was
2006.
no. I had just gotten there. Yeah.
Yeah, long time ago. So they snap a long playoff drought with the win. Got the Detroit Lions coming up next. Did you follow any playoff football, Coach?
No, just accidentally. I stumbled on the Rams shellacking the Vikings last night. I did know that Detroit was next in line, but who else is there? Philadelphia's in there. Buffalo's in there.
If you're going to watch one, I would recommend Sunday night, Buffalo and Baltimore. You got the two MVP candidates, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, going at it, and should be awesome.
Buffalo and Baltimore. I can catch that. I've got a 4 o'clock game. What time does it start?
That is a night game, 6:30, something like that.
So I can listen to it on my ride home. I can
There
listen
you
to the
go.
whole game. There you go.
Now you got plans. Coach, I'm assuming you did watch the college football playoff games, and Notre Dame survives against Penn State, and a really good game. And then Ohio State, Texas, tighter than many anticipated for a while, but the Buckeyes get it done. So we got Ohio State and Notre Dame in the championship. Are you okay with that matchup? Like I know a lot of people didn't like how the bracket was set up, but are we getting a good championship game to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we still got a good championship game. I didn't like the way we got there either, but Ohio State certainly is playing the best football. Notre Dame is playing really good football. The bracket wasn't fair. Nobody, whether you're for the playoff, against the playoff, nobody thought that the bracket was fair, but we still ended up with a worthy championship game and one that I think a ton of people are going to see. I didn't get to, I was watching literally 4 games for my preparation on Thursday. So I got to Notre Dame and Penn State a little bit late, but I got there in time for all the action. It
Right,
turns out,
second half.
and yeah, exactly. And I thought that was very exciting, and a chance for James Franklin to get off the schneid with the big games. But I think he's done enough. Whether I like the coach or don't like the coach, if they're getting unfair treatment, I kind of pull for them. So that's why I'm sort of pulling for Ohio State here because I think Day has gotten really a raw deal. 3 straight losses to Michigan. I understand the importance, but overall, you can't really argue with what he's done or how he's done it and the dominance that they have had for the most part. And Freeman is totally a likable guy too. The special teams coach is an incredible story, but even the quarterback, Leonard is an incredible story. Actually coached against his dad, I'm pretty sure, when he was at the Citadel playing basketball. May have just missed him, but I think I coached against him when he was at the Citadel. But great game. I think it's going to be a great game. I was listening to, how I send you random stats and stuff. I
Yes,
was
yes.
listening to one today that doesn't have anything to do with this specific game, but Ohio State played Miami, and I don't know what year, the Claret year. So they had 43 starters in the game because somebody played both ways, but 43 starters. How many of those 43 starters do you think got drafted in the NFL?
Oh, is this like early 2000s Miami
Yeah,
and Ohio State?
yeah.
Yeah. Let's go 34.
37.
Huh?
37. 100 people played in the game and 52 were drafted. So even among the non-starters, 15 more were drafted. That's how good those rosters were. And they may have a similar kind of roster right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, either team winning would be an incredible story. And of course the sidelight, everybody wants to go for the negative. Brian Kelly says he left because they didn't have the resources to win a national championship, so he went to LSU where he hadn't made the college football playoff yet. But I tend to think the other way and think what a great job Marcus Freeman done, and what a great decision by the AD at Notre Dame to give him that opportunity. Apparently,
And Coach, it's so like year to year in college football now, and the big boys should be able to stay big boys, but like Freeman at Notre Dame, if this happened in 1990 or whatever, you'd say, man, they're going to win a championship one day, and he's going to
yeah.
build this thing into a power. But now the way it is, like, uh, I'm reluctant to say that because I feel like you don't know who's going to be the team year to year. It kind of depends on who you get at quarterback out of the portal for a lot of these teams. And Notre Dame has been living off these 1 year deals, so to speak, at quarterback. So
Yeah.
just kind of interested to see, can he turn this thing into a power, or are we in the era where you just need to hope this year goes good for you because you don't know about what's coming up next?
Yeah, and one thing as an old timer like me would look at it and say, kids want to go where they have a chance to win the national championship. So short term, you would think they would
Yeah.
be able to sustain it, but that's not always the deciding factor anymore. It's where can you go win, where can you go play, and where can you make the most money. So maybe. I think it probably is harder to sustain it today than it was like when we talked about when Miami was playing Ohio State with Maurice Clarett.
One of my favorite things we did last year, Mac, was you educating us on where all the quarterbacks landed in the transfer portal. And I hope you're keeping a list again because we've already got some names. How about, and I guess Jared, you must have seen, you said Carson Beck would end up in Miami. I think I said Notre Dame for him, but Carson Beck to Miami. So get your master sheet ready, Mac, so we can go over this summer.
I will. I will. They're starting to, and I think there's still going to be some surprises out there too. But yeah, I will have my quarterback sheet ready for sure.
And I guess like these teams in the playoffs, they're not hamstrung by any of this, right? Like they're grabbing guys out of the portal just like other teams, or is there a disadvantage for Ohio State and Notre Dame right now as far as the portal goes?
I don't, I don't think with the size of the staffs the way they are, I don't
Right.
think there's a disadvantage. There could have been back in the day where you had limited numbers of people on your staff, but
Yeah.
anybody that's made it this far in the playoff, they have unlimited personnel working on this all year round.
Mack McCarthy joining us. Mac, that's a new background. Like what kind of basketballs and autographs or are those like game balls you got there behind you?
Well, one is the NC State game ball. Two are from the Sweet 16 run. The first two games beat Illinois and beat Georgia. There's the NC State newspaper from the Reflector or from the Observer. From the Observer. From the NC State game. I didn't turn it around because of those things. I turned it around because you can see the sun coming in, and we haven't been in the house long enough to get the shades up yet. So it was too sunny the other direction where you had the fireplace in the background. But this worked out just fine.
Tell you what, you might see some bandwagon. You might see some Commander stuff pop up. I mean, Virginia, and it used to be Redskins country, and then it
Oh,
wasn't cool for 30 years to be a Redskins fan. So,
I went to the doctor the other day at Ortho, Virginia, or Virginia Ortho or something, and they are the official orthopedic supplier of the Washington Commanders.
there
They
you
had
go.
they had Commander stuff all over the building.
If you see Terry McLaurin in there, grab me an autograph if you don't mind, Coach Mac. Mac McCarthy joining us today as we got football going on, we got basketball going on. Coach, So Memphis knocks off East Carolina on Saturday, and Memphis is, I think, head and shoulders above everybody right now in the American, and had a good non-conference, so they set themselves up. They're in the top 25. If they can get through this thing, I don't think they have to go undefeated or anything, but if they get through with like two, even three conference losses, they should be in pretty good standing here. But what was it like when you had your best teams, at Chattanooga, or even at VCU, where you had the best team in the conference? You knew you had to basically win your conference tournament to get in. As fans, we think about March Madness and are we in? Are we in Joey Brackett's bracketology and all that stuff? You can't think about that as a coach, though, right? But you do know that's the finish line. So, how about teams that are kind of just knowing they're the best team in their conference, but unless they win the thing at the end, it won't even matter? Well, what's that like going through the process?
Yeah, for the first thing about it is it's simple. You have to win in March. You have to win the conference tournament, and you know all the other stuff. You can afford to go be up and down a little bit. You can afford to send some messages. You can afford to sit somebody down. You can afford to experiment a little bit, knowing that if you don't win in March, it isn't going to matter. And you do everything you can do to sort of put yourself in position to have it at large opportunity, and we were able to play really good teams when we were at Chattanooga. You can't really do that anymore as a low mid major. You can't get folks to come to your place. But at that point in time, we had some good resume win type things, but we still were a real long shot to ever get in at large bid. So we played it like that. We were able to do some things that you weren't able to do if you were on that bubble, so to speak, that you better win every single game and play as well as you can kind of situation. But it makes things simpler. You got to win the tournament, be healthy, be well rested, and be playing your best basketball when you go into March.
Can you save stuff as a coach? I mean, you want to win every game, but do you show a different look, like in your second game of the regular season against the team, knowing you might see them again a few weeks later in the tournament?
You absolutely save stuff. Yeah, we would change. We would change basically three times during the season. We would change after the non-conference. We would change after the first time through league play because usually at that point everybody was in small enough leagues where we paid everybody
Right.
twice, and then we would tweak again going into the tournament. And a lot of things would stay the same, but you always had to have some wrinkles. Some of the counters that you might have used during the season, yes, you do save those, and we always had some wrinkles on both sides of the ball. We played an awful lot of junk defenses in the postseason, which people don't play all that much. Some people play more than others, but we love to play some junk defense in the postseason just to try to mix it up for people and to catch them off guard.
Of course, I know what that means, but for those that don't know, what is junk defense? Like me, because I
Basically, I
don't know
mean,
what that is.
mostly you hear about a triangle and two where you play some zone and play some man. There's also a box and one or a diamond
Gotcha.
and one, and you can even go further than that. You can play two people playing a zone and three people playing man to man, based on personnel, but not straight man to man, not straight zone, and more people play hybrid kind of things now too. We used to do a lot of something that many people are doing now, where you play zone till a certain position in the shot clock. Ours was 8 seconds, and then you play man the last 8 seconds, and that's a fairly sophisticated thing. That it sounds simple, but it's not quite as simple as me saying it on the radio.
Mack McCarthy joining us, talking a little X's and O's. Coach Mack, I don't want to be redundant with you when we talk college basketball every week, but Duke and Auburn still look really good. I feel like I've said that 3 weeks in a row now. And Iowa State, do they have like Marcus Fizer and Tinsley back? How are they good this year? What's going on
Yeah,
with
they
the
are good.
Cyclones?
Yeah, Otzelberger, the coach there, has done a great job, and they've accumulated some talent, and they're awfully good in that league. The Auburn took a big hit when Broom got hurt the other day, and I'm still waiting to hear exactly how bad that injury is. If he's out for the year or an extended period of time, that's going to really affect their chances to win the whole thing. But that being said, they're playing really good basketball, and Duke, when you have somebody like Flag who can go for 42,
Yeah.
nobody has ever scored as good as the ACC has been. No freshman has ever scored that many points in a league basketball game or any basketball game, to be honest.
Overwhelming front runner to be named Player of the Year is Cooper Flag. Coach, I saw Louisville is 12-5, and one of the richest traditions as far as basketball goes, and absolutely bottomed out a few years ago. But Pat Kelsey has them winning games now, and will probably have them winning even more here in the next few years. And on that note, like, who are some of your favorite coaches that are not household names, like a Kelsey or somebody like that? Who's some guys you really like that are either up and comers or have been around a while and we just don't know about them? Does anybody come off the top of your head there?
Well, Pat Kelsey is a good one because he's been at the College of Charleston, and before that at Winthrop, and he's a unique guy, very intense guy.
One thing you don't
He's
see a
one.
lot of is tattoos on a coach, and that's one
Yeah,
thing.
no, you don't. You don't. Yeah, he does a lot of things don't other people don't do, but what he does is get his kids to play extremely hard. They are way outperforming their talent right now, and mostly because of effort. And he keeps things very simple on the offensive end. But he's got a few transfers in there. Well, he's got a few. He's got the entire team is transfers, but he's got a few that are really excelling. And yeah, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the ACC for sure. And I don't know, think about coaches that maybe don't get enough credit. Gosh, basketball coaches tend to, you tend to know who they are at this point. But I think Steve Forbes is an underrated guy.
Yeah.
That's one of those guys that doesn't he doesn't get the same publicity as Duke or NC State or even Kevin Keats at NC State or Carolina with Hubert Davis. But I tell you what, he is an awfully good coach.
Seems like North Carolina on the right track now. I mean, you look at them; they beat NC State over the weekend, but their losses, they're like the who were we looking at? Was it Philadelphia or it was the Packers? Yeah, like the all the Packers lost this year up until the Bears game was two to Minnesota, two to Detroit, and one to
Yeah,
Philadelphia. They lost
good
to some
teams.
really good teams. That's kind of
Yeah.
what Carolina's done in basketball this year. But I haven't seen this week. Last week, Duke was the only ranked team in the ACC. Is that still the case now, Mac? I haven't looked at the rankings this week.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I've been looking at the women's rankings instead of the men because I've got women's games coming up. But yeah, I think so. And that's why when North Carolina dropped out of the rankings, I didn't really understand that. They had, like you said, they didn't have a bad loss. They weren't playing their best, but I said all along it's going to be Duke and then Carolina, and then there's a drop off, and then there's a handful of teams. But the ACC is not looking at they're not looking at double figure teams in the NCAA tournament like they have at some point, and like the SEC is this year. They're looking at four and hoping for five or six.
Speaking of women's basketball, Kim McNeil's Pirates get their first conference win on Saturday, and saw a freshman hit a few threes that she's trying to figure out the formula that works for her, and I've got no issue with them, Coach Mack, because they are one of the teams that seem to kind of flip that switch when conference tournament begins. So I got to think they're ready to make another run. But good to see them get a win over the weekend. How about you? What's the storylines now with no Caitlin Clark in women's basketball? What are the national storylines when it comes to women's college basketball right now?
Well, again, the SEC is pretty darn good. South Carolina, despite losing a post player, is really good. LSU is good again. Tennessee has made a little bit of a comeback. Kentucky has made a little bit of a comeback. The SEC is strong. The ACC is good again, although I think it's a little top heavy. Notre Dame with Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles, two names that if you're a women's basketball fan, you know really well. But they've still got a Maddie Westfield and a Citron at the guard spot that's really good. I think there's some separation after them in the ACC. Usually it's 4 or 5 or 6 teams, but this time it's one, and then 4 or 5 or 6 fighting to be those next teams. Kansas State awfully good on the women's side. UCLA and USC coming into the Big Ten, and they're the best teams in the Big Ten. Juju Watkins again, one of the best players in the country, and UCLA's got one of the best centers in the country. But I think the women have sustained, if you will. Virginia Tech, for instance, where I do a lot of games, they they lost 2 All-Americans. They lost their coach, but they're still, averaging more than they ever have in attendance. That has carried over. That there's been some continuity. Virginia has had sellouts, and they haven't been good lately. They just had a big gift of, I don't know how many millions of dollars over the next 10 years from a wealthy alum, the founder of Reddit, and the husband of Serena Williams. So
Wow.
I think there's some real momentum on the women's side that is sustained despite the lack of a Caitlin Clark.
Mack McCarthy joining us, talking hoops, talking football. We'll circle back to the championship here, Coach Mack. Can the Irish hang around with Ohio State? Can they win the game, or are you taking Ryan Day? Sounds like it's crazy because I was talking earlier this week how Notre Dame went from, oh my God, I'm so sick of Notre Dame, to now I'm kind of rooting for them. Now they're like the plucky underdog. And we got Coach Mack over here who has Ryan Day as a sympathetic figure rooting for him. So the whole thing's upside down. But you think the Buckeyes get it done?
I think they do, but I think Notre Dame is good enough to play and not make mistakes. And Ohio State, I mean, they were their own worst enemy a little bit in the semifinal game by having some costly penalties and stuff, the unsportsmanlike, and then some the pre-snap problems and the hold here and there. They're capable of keeping Notre Dame in it, but I'll be really surprised if Notre Dame wins the football game.
Coach Mack there. Jarrett Watkins behind the camera. We got to do, let's do our own little NASCAR pool this year, fellas. What do you think? Because Jarrett's a huge fan. Mack's
You never
all
let
in it.
me in the pool. You never let me in the NASCAR pool. I would
Guess what?
love to be in the NASCAR pool.
Times are a changing. Let's do that this year. It'll
We
keep
only
me.
have about 3 weeks till Daytona.
There you go. So in a couple weeks, we'll do a draft. We'll draft it here on the show.
I'm in. I'm in.
All right, Mac. Thank you, man. What games you got this week? Where can we see you?
I've got a big one on Thursday, the Commonwealth Clash between Virginia and Virginia Tech. And then I've got Louisville coming to Blacksburg on Sunday, which a lot of college basketball fans will recognize the name Liz Kitley, who was 3-time ACC Player of the Year. They're retiring her jersey and bobblehead night and all that. So got a couple big games in Blacksburg this week, and then I've got a week off before I jump back into the frying pan.
All right, Mac. Enjoy it, man, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Thank y'all.